so will you. Huang Yueli looked at him with her beautiful big eyes with an extremely innocent expression. Li Moying's arm tightened, and glared at this little fox who was specialized in opposing him. Yes, of course I will. I want to wait for you to open the furnace and kiss you until you've lost all your senses, then I will bring both person and armament back. As for you, I'll bring you back to warm the bed, what do you think? He bowed his head and was very close to her fair cheek, as if he was about to kiss her. You are really too shameless, let go of me this instance. I've got an important thing to do. Huang Yueli pushed him away in panic. Fortunately, Li Moying also recognized that this wasn't an appropriate place to be intimate and did not insist any further and let her off. If you want to open this armament furnace, just go ahead. Everyone is still waiting for us, we've got to hurry back. Li Moying said faintly. Tone of voice wasn't very good because he had an uncomfortable feeling in his heart. This little fox, although she had beaten about the bush, but he wasn't stupid either. He immediately understood once he heard it. She was still worried that he would act when she opened the furnace, which was why she said all that just to test him. Although he had not thought himself to be a good person, he did not have this hobby to snatch things away from his beloved woman. The moment he had fallen for the woman, he would be totally devoted to her and anything could be given to her. He definitely wasn't those kind of trash that would only use honey words, but when they encounter such a situation or in danger, they would immediately change. He also knew that they had barely known each other for a month and every time her attitude in rejecting him was very apparent. Their time spent together wasn't long enough, so the lack in trust was also very normal. If they could spend more time together and experience more things together, their trust in each other would naturally grow. Even if that's the case, no matter what, hearing his little fox say it still hurt him a little. When she heard his tone of voice, she also knew that he wasn't too happy and a sense of guilt crept up from within. But very soon she felt that incredulous for feeling guilty. That didn't make any sense at all. For knowing each other for only a month and having a fortunate stroke of serendipity to discover such a priceless treasure that every cultivator dreamt of. What was inside this armament furnace was possibly something that was of the 9th grade or even higher. Even if she was at the pinnacle of her previous life, she still wouldn't be able to refine out such an armament. In such a situation, wasn't it normal to be worried of any sneak attack? As the saying goes, one may know a person for a long time without understanding his true nature. In her previous life she had also seen many such cases. Many couples that were deeply enamored and close friends, yet just for the sake of a peerless artifact, they turned their backs against each other and became bitter enemies, so what more for them who had just met and barely familiar with each other. Huang Yueli tried her best to suppress the guilty feeling that was growing and turned her head. I'm going to open the furnace already. It's better that you stand further back a bit because I don't know if anything accidents may happen later. If I make a slight mistake and it explodes, you might get injured. Hearing her words, not only did Li Moying not retreat back, he even took a step forward and stuck on close beside her. If it's so dangerous, must you really open it? His tone sounded a bit urgent. Huang Yueli replied nonchalantly, there's no problem, I am very familiar with the structure of such furnaces. There's a 99% grasp of it. I'm just saying it just in case. That tiny possibility of it exploding is always there, so it's good to be more careful. You can also listen on. Li Moying no longer spoke, neither did he step back but just looked intently at her. Huang Yueli gave him a weird look as she said, what are you doing? Hurry up and move back. I am seriously going to open the furnace now. Li Moying snide coldly, so you also know that there's such a thing as in case. If you must open this furnace then just go ahead and open it, but I will stay here to protect you. In case anything happened, with your sad level of cultivation, where do you think you can escape to? In the end, don't you still have to rely on me? You. Although what he said was extremely rude and arrogant, and he even made it sound like he despised her low level of cultivation. However, deep down, Huang Yueli knew that he was clearly concerned for her. Immediately, she felt extremely remorseful for her probing actions just now. "Alright then, as long as the furnace doesn't explode, no matter what I'm doing, you cannot stop me." Li Moying nodded his head in agreement. The moment she finished speaking, she turned and focused on the armament furnace in front of her. Her position was very precise. The furnace was exactly 3 feet and 3 inches apart, not an inch more, nor an inch less. With rapt attention, she carefully studied the lines that ran along the furnace while her mind was calculating at an absurd speed. To be able to refine a 9th-grade armament furnace, which was a treasure itself, adding on to the fact that she wasn't the master of it, opening it would be very difficult and very dangerous as well. The contraption to open the furnace must be hidden on the wall of the furnace. There was a complex network of 81 different positions. However, only 3 were the correct ones, and if a wrong one was selected, it would explode. Not only that, this Master Yun Tian was also an array master. On this armament furnace he had forged, he even engraved a number of arrays to strengthen the flame as well as to enhance the product being refined. These array patterns also added on to the load of Huang Yueli, as she needed to factor these into her calculations to dispel the array to negate these effects so as not to influence her judgment. This was an extremely arduous and taxing process. Not only did it call for her deep comprehension in armament refining and arrays, it also expended a large amount of mental fortitude. If she didn't have these, she may collapse halfway during the process. Huang Yueli stood motionless for a very long time, as if she had been petrified into stone. Suddenly, her figure flashed by as she flicked her fingers and a small flame appeared at her fingertip. This flame was very small, but it was mesmerizing as it burned brilliantly, but it did not hurt one's eyes by its glare. Its heat was intense, and even from a far distance, its scorching hot temperature could be felt. This was the real phoenix flame that she had refined in her body. Each deviant flame had their own quirks and were hard to control. Especially more so for such types that was currently in the furnace that still had a shred of consciousness that Master Yun Tian had left behind. She had especially taken the true phoenix flame out because, among all deviant flames, it was the overlord of it all. The moment the true phoenix flames made an appearance, the deviant flame within the furnace immediately felt a threat and began to undulate wildly. However, in the face of the overlord of deviant flames, it gave off an oppressive pressure. Very quickly, the deviant flame inside the armament furnace became weaker and weaker. Eventually it condensed into a tiny flame. Huang Yueli's fingers seemingly danced deftly, while borrowing the brilliance of the true phoenix flame. In the air she drew out patterns after patterns of arrays. These array patterns seemed to be alive as they lit up resplendently and flashed as they flew towards the furnace. Each time an array pattern touched the armament furnace, the entire armament furnace trembled and let out a muffled sound. You can also listen on. The movement of Huang Yueli was very fast and precise. In the blink of an eye, she had complete 12 complicated array patterns. Each time she completed one, she would move in a clockwise direction at a certain angle around the armament furnace. The position where her foot was extremely accurate, while her hands danced non-stop. Before she started, Li Moying stood by her side nervously and was prepared to save his little fox at any moment. However, when she started, he looked at her in stupor. Although he wasn't an array master, Li Moying was still an extremely talented genius. Not only did he have an outstanding cultivation level, his knowledge was also extraordinary. Naturally, he also had some understanding of arrays. He also knew other array masters. One of them was Muro Mi's master, who was a highly praised and renowned array master of the 8th grade helmed for being a genius amongst geniuses. However, he had never ever witnessed anyone draw array patterns like what Huang Yueli was currently doing. Without a need of an array board, any array drawings, most shockingly, without the time to even think and calculate. Usually when an array master constructs the array patterns, there was a need for a lot of preparation. Each and every one of them would prepare various precious materials and moved with prudence as they slowly drew the array pattern stroke by stroke meticulously while they were in deep contemplation, or else the array might be rendered useless. But his little fox here. She directly used a deviant flame and drew array patterns in the air with fluid movements. Not only was there not a shred of nervousness, everything was done with precision and confidence. Her movements were graceful, elegant and harmonious. It was just like a unique dance that had an indescribable beauty to it. Li Moying could not pull his gaze away from her as he followed every movement in fascination. Time flew by. After Huang Yueli drew more and more array patterns and the trembling of the armament furnace also became more violent each time as a burst of black smoke spewed out from within. Eventually, it started to shake violently as it gave off loud rattling noises. If not for the 3 contraptions on the floor to restrict its movement, it might have directly jumped out. Huang Yueli's expression was somber and her fingers moved faster and faster. Beads of perspiration started to form on her forehead as her face started to flush a shade of red. Li Moying was even more wary as he focused 120% of attention on her. He knew that it was almost time for the furnace to open. Moreover, this was the most critical juncture and the most dangerous moment of it all. Huang Yueli's mental fortitude was obviously a little inadequate and it became hard to support it. However, every movement she made was still perfect without any mistakes. Li Moying had even more admiration when he saw such conviction. At the last moment, if there was just a sliver of error, not only would all the hard work be useless, the entire armament furnace would immediately explode. Seeing how violent the entire armament furnace was shaking right now, one could easily imagine what kind of magnitude the explosion would be. Li Moying did not dare to slack off and was ready to move at any moment. It was at this point that Huang Yueli had completed drawing her array. She moved her fingers closer and a sharp whistling reverberated throughout. Open! The true phoenix flame immediately surrounded the entire armament furnace as it burned resplendently and all the array patterns lit up as they started to join and link up. The entire armament furnace started to quake wildly, as if something was within it that was desperately trying to escape from the true phoenix flame. Bang! After a muffled sound, then entire armament furnace suddenly stopped moving. You can also listen on. Following that, the lid moved slightly and a small opening was revealed. The lid slowly moved up and the purple smoke started to gush out. By the time the entire lid came off, most of the purple smoke had also dispersed and Huang Yueli took a step forward. Quick, let's have a look to see what's inside. Wow! It's heavy. She called out and reached her hand in and pulled out a purple sword. This purple sword was made of an unknown material and the entire sword was enveloped with a faint purple glow. The shape was simple and elegant and there was a golden lightning mark engraved at the lower part of the blade. However, it was slightly longer than an ordinary sword and was also much thicker. The blade was not sharp at all, its edge was blunt. This is an edgeless sword. Li Moying gasped. Huang Yueli replied, not only is it an edgeless sword, it is a heavy sword of the thunder attribute. A sword was the most commonly seen weapon in the soaring heavens continent and it was the chosen weapon of the majority of cultivators. There was also a myriad of varieties of swords out there. According to the length of the blade, it was divided into short swords, long swords, and great swords. They also had a varying degree of hardness as well as the shape that could be further classified into straight sword, curved sword, crescent sword or even snake sword. They could also be classified according to the weight such as a broadsword. In addition, because of the different ways of attack, there were also various advantages between an edgeless sword and one with sharp edges. Regular swords with edges are usually light, thin, flexible and sharp. A real good sword would be one that could cut gold and break jade. When fighting, it relies on the sharpness of the edge to slash and attack the enemy. The edgeless sword is the complete opposite, or it's often forged as a heavy sword. For this types of swords, if there was no profound chi imbued in it, there wasn't any lethality at all. However, the materials used in forging edgeless swords were more rare, as it could absorb the profound chi of the cultivator. Not only that, it could even absorb in the heaven and earth profound chi to aid in its attack. Hence, in the hands of a powerful cultivator, its terrifying potential would be unleashed and wreak havoc upon the heavens and earth. It could also be said that for swords with sharp edges are the preferred choice of the average person and low-level cultivators, while the edgeless sword is the chosen sword of the truly powerful cultivators, as it accompanies them and brings them to new heights. In terms of forging them, edgeless swords are a huge hurdle, and could be said that it was a trial for armament masters. Almost all edgeless swords were only made by armament masters that were at least of the 6th grade. Not only that, all materials had to be at least the 6th grade to be able to withstand the intense profound chi that was imbued into it during battles. The edgeless sword in Huang Yueli's hands was outstanding. Just by holding it in her hands, she could already feel the oppressive pressure it gave off. It was as if a peerless master was standing in front of her, and tea weighed heavily on her and she was struggling to even hold it. It was at this moment that her hand trembled and the long sword fell towards the ground. Li Moying immediately reached out to catch it. "How could you be so careless?" he asked affectionately as he brought it to her. However, Huang Yueli did not reach her hands out to take it. "This sword has been rejecting me. I didn't drop it accidentally, but rather it kept trying to distance itself away from me. It looks like it doesn't like me." Li Moying was startled and he looked down at the sword in his hands. The sword remained obedient in his hands and there wasn't anything that seemed out of place. He then suddenly widened his eyes and asked her in astonishment, "Are you saying that this sword has self-awareness? But if that's the case, why can't I feel it?" Huang Yueli smiled and said, "Of course, this is a half-divine relic. Naturally it has its own consciousness, moreover, it should have its own spirit. You can also listen on." Upon hearing those words, Li Moying's hands trembled and almost dropped the sword on the ground. "You said, this is a half-divine relic." No wonder Li Moying was shocked. Ever since the legendary 9th grade armament Grand Master Huang Yueli perished in the northern ice fields, it had been several decades since any 9th grade armaments was refined. Even if he was an exceptional talent, the only way to get a 9th grade armament was to snatch one from those 9th grade beasts. At his current level, this was obviously impossible. Which was why Li Moying had never seen a 9th grade armament, what's more, a half-divine relic. Judging by the way this sword was withdrawn from the furnace, it was definitely something extraordinary. However, Li Moying had never expected it to be a half-divine relic. Huang Yueli nodded. In actual fact, the mind-blowing impact it had on her was no less than Li Moying. She felt a moment of glee when she saw the usually tranquil Li Moying revealing a startled expression. Every single time, this man left her dumbstruck. It was finally her turn to let him have a taste of being dumbfounded. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but feel a sliver of complacency. She was probably the only one in this great land who can recognize the armament master of the half-divine relic. It was all due to the possession of the god relic, Sky Phoenix Ring. In her past life, in order to restore the Sky Phoenix Ring, Huang Yueli went through countless armament scriptures. Therefore, any matter related to the 9th grade armaments, there was definitely no one who can beat her knowledge and understanding. That year, in an antiquarian book, she discovered that thousands of years ago in Soaring Heaven's continent, armaments masters were able to refine half-divine relics. The only problem was, the blueprint no longer extant. Every half-divine relic takes an extremely long period of time to refine, from as short as a few hundred years to a few thousand years, each requiring blazing inferno to calcine before it can materialize and nurture its consciousness. Considering all the clues, she had already guessed that the armament inside was likely a half-divine relic, even before opening the furnace. The reason for her insistence on staying put and opening the furnace on the spot was all because if other people were to burst into the cave dwelling, simply blindly opening the furnace will cause an explosion, thereby ruining the half-divine relic. To a talented armament master such as her, such wasteful behavior was unacceptable. Li Moying stood stunned momentarily before slowly regaining his senses. He couldn't resist caressing the seemingly rough exterior of the sword. The simple and unadorned veined pattern hinted a faint purplish glow, giving him a sense of familiarity and comfort. Since he was a thunder attribute practitioner, this sword and him was simply a perfect match. No matter how hefty this sword was, in his hands, it is as slight as a feather. Just as his finger was feeling the vanguard, suddenly, the sword let out a blinding purple light. He could not pull back in time, feeling a sharp pain in his finger. A drop of blood slid down from his fingertips and dripped on the sword blade. Fresh blood seeped into the sword blade's veined pattern. At the same time, a lightning-shaped tattoo appeared on the back of Li Moying's arm. My sword. The event happened without warning, and by the time the purple light dimmed, Huang Yueli finally reacted and pounced forward. Li Moying, you said you wouldn't snatch my stuff. But now you've made the half-divine relic acknowledge you as its master. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli was utterly discomfited. Catching hold of Li Moying's arm, she wished she could chomp hard on it to relieve her anger. Li Moying was dumbstruck as well. When he finally came to his senses, he felt unjustified. He hadn't done anything at all, yet for no reason, the sword shot out with purple lighting, causing his finger to bleed, and absurdly completed the process of acknowledging him as the master of the sword. This. Lear, don't be agitated. Listen to my explanation. You're a liar, traitor, scoundrel. Huang Yueli refused to listen nor accept his apology. Between laughter and tears, Li Moying felt slightly guilty. Even though he didn't know what had happened, the fact is he did promise Huang Yueli that he will not poach the armament. And now he has reaped the biggest gain. A half-divine relic. Even the word priceless cannot describe its value. And if the news of the birth of a half-divine relic was revealed to the world, it will likely cause a carnage. To obtain this half-divine relic, just how many experts from the ninth-degree realm will fight amongst themselves? By then, the consequences will definitely be unsightly. Such a precious item has been filched by him, of course this little fox will flip out. To be honest, Li Moying didn't want this sword. Although this sword's attributes, length or density suit him perfectly, in his eyes, nothing can be more important than his little fox. But since matters have come to pass. Li Moying's forehead filled with cold sweat, as he really didn't know how to explain to Huang Yueli. Still, he can only summon up all his courage to voice out. Lear, I really don't know why this sword suddenly chose me as its master. I only felt it was exquisite and couldn't stop myself from feeling it. Liar, you're lying to me. I'm really not. In actual fact, Huang Yueli wasn't really reluctant to give up this half-divine relic. Although this sword was extremely precious, she already has the Sky Phoenix ring, which was even more treasured. What's more, this sword had the thunder attribute. Not only that she has no use for it, this item is also difficult to handle and not easily auctioned off for silver. Perhaps after deliberation, she might end up gifting it to Li Moying. It's just that Li Moying suddenly made a contract with the half-divine relic, that was what surprised her the most. Even though she knew he didn't do it on purpose, Huang Yueli still felt indignant and was just finding excuses to blame him. Just as these two people were busy bickering, another purple flash suddenly appeared. What are you doing? You're not allowed to bully my master. A youthful, sharp voice cried out. The duo turned their heads towards the voice in unison and appeared to be in a daze. Coating the sword was a layer of purple light, and in its brilliance, the image of a young floated in mid-air. Her body was translucent, giving out a purplish light. This is established based on the energy, and attached to her shoulder blade was a huge pair of fluttery butterfly wings. What are you? Huang Yueli interrogated. The young lady lifted her chin, her beauty was emitting with purplish radiance. Proudly she said, "You're so rude. I'm the spirit within the sword, little lilac." Ooh, so you're the spirit artifact. I never expected this sword spirit artifact to be able to gather to become such a nimble virtual existence. Of course. I'm the all-powerful half-divine relic. Such a small matter of agglomeration, no problem. You can also listen on. As little lilac was talking, she suddenly turned her head towards Huang Yueli and demanded, "You're not allowed to be rude to my master. I belong to my master, not you. I chose him to be my master. You chose him yourself." Of course. I'm the noble half-divine relic, shouldn't I get to choose my own master? You should, but I still don't understand. Is my innate skill incomparable to Li Moying? I merely held you for a while, and that caused your displeasure. But you're willing to acknowledge him as your master. Huang Yueli voiced out the questions in her mind. It wasn't because she was arrogant and proud, but with her flame spirit physique, it should be considered as rare in the entire soaring heavens continent. What's more, she's a talent in all attributes for the 9th grade. Simply put, she also has innate 9th grade thunder attribute, which is a level that only an exceptional genius can reach. As a thunder attributed half-divine relic, by right, little lilac should be able to connect with her high level of thunder attributes. Even if she's not chosen as the owner, what's up with the rejection? Little lilac snorted proudly and drifted next to Li Moying's side and intimately tried to stick close to him. Your innate thunder physique isn't bad, but compared to master, it's a total drag. If I don't choose master, don't tell me I should choose you. Surprised by her words, Huang Yueli appeared distracted. She knew Li Moying was strong, his innate skill was preeminent, and thunder attribute itself was extremely rare. But from little lilac's explanation, could it be that his level has exceeded the 9th grade? What type of physique would it be then? Unless, he too has the flame spirit physique like her, a special type of physique. As Huang Yueli pondered, she heard little lilac delicately added. Of course, the most important reason is Master is a super-duper dashing man. Upon saying that, she closed the gap between herself and Li Moying. Huang Yueli and Li Moying was rendered speechless. At the end of the day, this spirit artifact is a love-struck idiot. Huang Yueli's lips twitched, asking unbelievably, "So, the main reason why you choose Li Moying is because he's handsome?" Naturally, little lilac affirmed, obviously. To be able to follow such a handsome master, every day will be a happy day. Only then can I grow stronger and stronger. Both of them fell into silence again. As Huang Yueli saw little lilac advancing towards Li Moying, she suddenly felt a sense of unpleasantness, as if someone has touched her items. And this made her out of sorts. Actually, she knew clearly, as a spirit artifact, little lilac's wanting to get close to Li Moying is absolutely normal. However, as she is simply a regiment of energy, the response should be very basic. By right, it should not have its own thinking. The way she spoke shows how love-struck she is, and it was highly possible that this had to do with the armament master's character who refined her. As for the part on choosing her master based on looks, it's all nonsensical. Spirit artifacts usually use their profound attribute and congeniality to choose a master. This is the innate skill, so to end the story, Li Moying is much stronger than her. Even knowing so, Huang Yueli sulked and showed Li Moying an unpleasant look. Li Moying totally misunderstood, thinking that she was upset that she didn't manage to snatch the god relic in time. Lear, don't be angry. When we leave here, let me think of a way to see if we can break off this relationship and return the sword to you. No, I'm not willing. Master, you cannot do this to me, little Lilac screeched. You can also listen on. Little Lilac's voice was both trifling and acute, making it particularly ear-piercing. Huang Yueli frowned. It's too noisy, restrain her quickly. Li Moying obliged, okay, I'll keep her away now. Saying that, his right hand formed a handprint, with a lowered tone, seal. Little Lilac cried opposingly. Since she has recognized him as her rightful owner, she cannot go against whatever decision he makes. Eventually, this starry-eyed infatuated girl was sealed back into the long sword. Following Little Lilac's disappearance, two flowy elegant words appeared on top of the long sword's hilt, Amethyst Light. The sword name's Amethyst Light. Huang Yueli exclaimed. Armaments above 9th grade have their own names, and similar to any human being, each armament are unique. As for Amethyst Light Sword, the name was already chosen by Master Yuntian since it started its refining journey. Li Moying's gaze was fixated on the Amethyst Light Sword, reluctant to part with it. The sword is especially suitable for Thunder attribute masters, not to mention it is an extremely good sword. Naturally, he likes it. However, no matter how much he likes it, he calmly said, all right, it's quietened down. We can proceed to discuss how to cancel the recognition of the owner. You're the armament master, so you should have a greater understanding than me. Whatever you need me to do, just spill it out. Huang Yueli didn't utter a word but gave his a death stare. So much that Li Moying innocently asked, what's the matter now? Why the glum look? Huang Yueli said, of course there's a way to remove the recognition. That's great, no matter how arduous the task is, I will definitely do it. Li Moying happily replied. Really? Huang Yueli threw him a glance, then are you willing to commit suicide immediately? What? Li Moying was stunned. Huang Yueli retorted, it's not an easy task to achieve. This is a half-divine relic. Earlier the spirit artifact's consciousness is very strong. It's not easy to make contact, unless you're dead. Otherwise she will follow you forever. So there's no way to remove it. Understand? An astonished Li Moying sulked upon hearing her words. This type of outcome was totally not expected. He wasn't concerned about his own life. However, if Huang Yueli ran into danger, he will not hesitate to throw his life away for her. Since their relationship was considered amicable now, how could he bear to die? To be frank, preserving this life will mean that he can continue to stick with Huang Yueli, protect her, seduce her. Li Moying suddenly came across a thought. His eyebrows twitched and from the corners of his mouth, a smile appeared. What are you laughing at? Shouldn't you have even a slightest sense of guilt? Huang Yueli looked at that pair of eyes overflowing with laughter and suddenly felt her heart skipping a beat. When she finally found her senses, she gloomily repented. This man. Simply fouled. Just because of his handsome looks, he keeps smiling. Is he using his handsome looks as a ruse to con her? Huang Yueli's guess may not be accurate, but it's not far from reality. Li Moying stared at her slightly flushed face, and his smile grew deeper. Look, now that matters have turned out like this, it really wasn't intentional on my part to loot your sword. Moreover, you also seem to can't bear for me to die. Why am I not willing? I am more than willing. Her thoughts were read by him, and like a cat whose tail was stepped on, she jumped out and, untrue to her own convictions, refuted him. You can also listen on. Li Moying wasn't upset when he heard these words. Instead, as he looked at her, a smile spread across his face as he continued. So, since I cannot return you the amethyst light sword, then treat that you have sold it to me. Sell to you. What fortune will you give up for this? Do you even know the value of the half-divine relic? Huang Yueli exclaimed. A 9th-level grade armament can easily bankrupt a renowned 9th-grade expert, not to mention a half-divine relic. Perhaps, this is the one and only half-divine relic in the entire Soaring Heavens continent. Li Moying sniggered, yes, you're absolutely right. I have nothing to exchange for this, so after deliberating, there is only one method. And that is... Huang Yueli anxiously gazed at him as he slowly spat out these 4 words. Offer myself to you. What? Huang Yueli instantly exploded, you're intentionally taking advantage of me. First, you stole my sword. Now, you're trying to take advantage of me. No way. Absolutely not. Never. Give up the thought, you lecher. Oh dear, Lear, your thoughts are so impure. I only said offer myself to you. Since when did I say I want to take advantage of you? As for the term lecher, that's pure slander. Li Moying felt pleased with himself after seeing her embarrassed and annoyed look. Huang Yueli stared at him, you dare to deny. You just said to offer yourself to pay off the debt. Of course, I did say that. But what I meant was to prepare to sell myself and be your chamberlain, to be at your beck and call. Whatever you ask me to do, I will do. It's not what you're imagining, all right? Saying this, his tone suddenly changed ambiguously. Of course, if you indeed have this need and require me to help you warm up the bed, I can only follow your instruction. But, please be gentle with me, this is my first time. Li Moying said this in an aggrieved manner. That tone and spirit is similar to a hedonistic rich boy fooling around with a virtuous young lady, and this made Huang Yueli twitch with anger, wanting to punch him. I don't need you to warm up my bed, she retorted. Li Moying heaved a sigh of relief exaggeratedly, as if he was in fear. In this case, all I need to do is to become your chamberlain. Yes, that's right. Huang Yueli exasperated. But upon seeing Li Moying's curved lips, she reacted quickly and corrected herself, no, that's not right. I don't want you to be my chamberlain. What use do I have for you? I want peak-level jade. Huang Yueli stomped her feet, feeling frustrated. Why is it that she is usually competent at everything, but in front of this man, she is forever on the losing end? Unknowingly, she will be cheated by him. Just because he is handsome. No. She's not a love-struck idiot. It's obvious that this man is too devious. Li Moying was unable to constrain his smile. This lass, she's just too cute. He shamelessly said, I don't care. You've already agreed to this transaction, how can you go back on your words? Business is not done in this way. What's more, I assure you that I'm very useful and can protect you. I can accompany you to train, look for materials and help you teach those who go against you a lesson. Of course, I can also warm up your bed, oomph. Upon hearing the words, warming bed, Huang Yueli angrily twitched his arm. You can also listen on. Li Moying touched his arm where he was pinched and using an aggrieved tone said, Lear, you're so fierce. Who asked you to utter nonsense? Huang Yueli furiously retorted. Li Moying's lips curled upwards, giving off a black-bellied, sinister smile. Since when did I sprout nonsense? I'm just worried that you think this deal is a huge loss for you. Since I'm using myself as the chip, of course I'll have to explain all the uses that comes along with me. Anyway, don't be worried and take my offer. You'll definitely won't be on the losing end. Otherwise I can strip to let you examine the goods. I'm sure my body will not let you feel disappointed. Sob sob. Shut up, shut up, shut up. An enraged Huang Yueli pinched him harder than before. Even though the person was Li Moying, he too could felt soreness on his arm. This little thing, had she no conscience? Was she trying to murder her own husband, twinging his arm in such a manner? Although they have yet to officially marry, it was still a marriage arrangement that had been set down by their parents. What's more, the amount of strength she was using isn't little at all. It was definitely stronger, compared to the other practitioners in the Qi Profound Realm 9th stage. Needless to say why he favors this little fox so much. Although Li Moying was pinched, he was still giving a disgusting grin. This made Huang Yueli extremely angry, yet there's nothing she could do. Where on earth could you find such a man like him? He's definitely her arch nemesis. In terms of power, she wasn't his match. In terms of schemes, this man was a level up from her. Most importantly, his skin was thicker than the palace walls. She stood no chances against him. Huang Yueli stared furiously and warned, "Don't blindly talk further. I'm not selling this sword anymore. I'll gift it to you, all right. Take your sword and scram. I don't need you to sell yourself or any other form of selling at all." Seeing her enraged to the point of sending the sword to him as a gift, it made Li Moying laugh uncontrollably. This young lass really was getting cuter and cuter. But she said she didn't need him. What should he do about this? Li Moying hastily rushed over, confessing in a justified tone. "No way. It's always been my principle to not bully the weak. I must upkeep my words. Since I've accepted your sword, I'll definitely repay my debts. Lear, don't worry. From now on, I'm yours." As Li Moying came closer, Huang Yueli subconsciously took a step backwards, hoping to draw some distance between them. Prince Yuang knew what she was up to, so he went nearer and nearer, forcing her into the corner of a wall. "Get further away from me. Is it necessary to come so close just to chat?" His skin was really thick. How can he blindly talk about his principles? What kind of joke is that? Li Moying chuckled, "I only wanted to close the gap for you to examine the goods. Have you seen clearly now?" "Yes, it's clear enough." "Satisfied?" "No." Huang Yueli barely said a word and saw Li Moying moving his hand towards his chest and unbuttoned his top, showing off a piece of his bare chest. "What are you up to now?" An annoyed Huang Yueli cried out. With a sly smile, Li Moying spoke, "Since you're not satisfied, I shall continue to exhibit myself until you are fully contented." Huang Yueli felt like slapping him to death. Better still, use a dagger to stab him. Unfortunately, all the armaments she had brought along were all used up in the previous battles. What remains were unlikely to cause any damage to Li Moying. Her rounded eyes raged brightly as if there were fire in it, making her look even more like a little fox. You can also listen on. Li Moying felt a stir within, and this raised his interest to continue making fun of her. He slowly and deliberately loosened the top of his robe, further exposing his chest. Li Moying was tall, but when dressed in his daily robes, he looked slightly skinny. In actual fact, his muscles were taut, the lines were perfect. Along with his jade-like skin, it was comparable to a sculpture. Huang Yueli kept warning herself, "Don't be entwined by this man." But she wasn't able to control her vision and kept stealing glances at Li Moying's chest. Li Moying was delighted. He slightly leaned his body forward and his handsome face went near Huang Yueli's earlobe. With a low voice, he teased, "How is it? Are you satisfied now? If not, you can feel for yourself. Touch your head." Huang Yueli pounded hard on his chest in an attempt to push him aside. God knows, this push caused her palm to press against Li Moying's chest. She hurriedly withdrew her hand, but Li Moying's reaction was faster. He tugged her hand and refused to let go. Under her palm, she felt his sturdy chest muscles pulsating. She clearly felt how strong this man was, filled with power. It's indeed better to feel it for yourself to be sure. Since you've already felt it, are you satisfied now? If not, we can continue downwards. I'm satisfied. Very satisfied. Enough of it already. Huang Yueli was afraid he would continue with a strip dance, hence she decided to listen. Li Moying showed a gratified smile. Gently chuckling, he said, "Since you've already examined the goods, this shows that you're satisfied with it. That concludes our deal. In future I'll keep following you, so pay off my debt." In a resigned tone, Huang Yueli pronounced, "You don't need to follow me around. Really? I can take care of myself." "Is that so?" Li Moying disapprovingly said. "I only left for a short span of 6 days and you've fallen over a cliff. And hunted down by a flowing cloud fire leopard. If not for me, you'd have become a corpse. You still dare to tell me that you can take care of yourself? That was an accident." "What accident?" "I don't want to listen to your explanation. Anyway, in my eyes, you are the one whom I want to protect. We shall do as I say. Even if you don't agree, you are not able to get rid of me." The last sentence was simply too hoodlum-like, yet it was also the truth. Huang Yueli went completely silent, and finally realized that even if she had set up her defenses, she was still cheated by this man. Was it really destined that she had carried this burden everywhere she went? That said, an extremely handsome and powerful burden. Perhaps to other women, having Li Moying as a chaperone was an honor. But to Huang Yueli, the only feeling was he was in extremely huge trouble. She had seen for herself on Li Moying's ability to attract women. The unexpected calamity that she suffered in these 2 days, wasn't it because of the romance debts that this man chalked up and entangled her into? If he were to follow her around daily, without even thinking, she could already envision her usual peaceful life to be turned upside down. Huang Yueli sighed. Forget it, since there was no way to get rid of him, rejection wasn't an option, just temporarily agree to his terms. Perhaps after following her for a few days, he might feel bored and decide to leave on his own accord. Alright, get dressed properly now. Aren't we supposed to meet up with Moe and the rest? It's not early anymore, it's time for us to leave. You can also listen on. Li Moying could tell that she had already given in, and this made him chuckle proudly. This trick of his was truly killing 2 birds with 1 stone. He could not help but admire himself for being able to come out with this. Not only did he manage to compensate Huang Yueli, he also created a perfect excuse to stick to the little fox every day. Looks like the day for love to come in time is imminent. While Li Moying was rearranging his clothes, Huang Yueli stood in front of the armament furnace again. "What are you searching for? Don't tell me there are more armaments." Li Moying curiously questioned. Huang Yueli shook her head. "It's empty now, but this armament furnace itself is a valuable treasure." To an armament master, a quality armament furnace was even harder to come by as compared to armaments. That was because the furnace's quality will determine the level of the armaments that could be forged. In her previous life, when she was restoring the Sky Phoenix ring, she had already destroyed more than 39th level armament furnaces. This was because the furnaces were not able to cope with the high temperature that is required for the smelting of the god relic. The anguish that she felt. At that time, she only wanted to repair the god relic, therefore had to calcinate certain materials. This alone already depleted many of her precious high-end materials which she collected over the years, into a heap of waste. If she wanted to refine the god relic, then the requirement for the armament furnace would definitely need to be higher than 100 times. Now that Master Yuntian had left this furnace, even though it cannot be used to refine god relics, at least it was still able to refine half-divine relics. The most important issue was after 3,000 years of continuously burning, there appeared to be no damage to the furnace at all. This was the first time Huang Yueli had come across such a top-quality furnace. In her eyes, this furnace's existence was even more valuable than the amethyst light sword. In the stove chamber laid a mysterious, undying flame. To Huang Yueli, who had the flame's spirit physique, this was a peerless treasure. Huang Yueli waved her hand and produced a handprint towards the armament furnace. A small ball of flames slowly rose from the bottom of the furnace. This flame dazzled brightly, radiating a faint hinge of purple. Surrounding the flame were flickering electric waves. Although the mysterious flame was feeble, the moment it appeared, the temperature in the room rose. Beads of sweat formed on Huang Yueli's forehead. Amethyst thunder flame. A trace of happiness flashed across Huang Yueli's eyes. Amethyst thunder flame was in the top 10 mysterious flames ranking. This mysterious flame had the thunder attribute. When combined together, it could double the attack rate of armaments, thereby making the armament even stronger. There was nothing more suitable than to use the amethyst thunder flame to forge thunder-attributed half-god relic. It was no wonder that the amethyst light sword could nurture to a vivid spirit artifact like Little Lilac. Huang Yueli's palm faced upwards and slowly retracted. The amethyst thunder flame slowly drifted into her palms, with a careless spark, it was absorbed within her body. Li Moying was totally stunned. He knew Huang Yueli was a fire attribute practitioner and her affinity with fire was very high. He also expected her to be able to successfully subdue the amethyst thunder flame. But the as successful that he had initially thought versus the successful performance that Huang Yueli had shown was totally different. The process that Huang Yueli refined the mysterious flame was totally illogical. Wasn't it supposed to be a tedious task filled with perils? Even if her innate skill was high, shouldn't it at least take some time to do it? As a matter of fact, the amethyst thunder flame wasn't something that anyone could handle. You can also listen on. It was impossible to refine the amethyst thunder flame, which had the thunder attribute, unless you had both thunder and fire attribute physiques. In order to obtain the amethyst thunder flame, some of the armament masters or alchemy masters would bring along thunder-attributed armaments or set up arrays to aid and suppress the mysterious flames and sometimes barely succeed. But now, this last simply just waved her small hands and easily restrained the amethyst lighting flame. If it wasn't for the fact that Li Moying had personally witnessed the entire scene, he would never think such a thing was possible at all. What great talent was this lass? Could it be that she's also a legendary? Alright, done. Let's go, Huang Yueli's voiced out. Li Moying turned around and found the furnace missing. He estimated that this lass had kept it into an interspatial ring. He didn't know that she had the Sky Phoenix ring in her possession, and thought it was just another ordinary interspatial ring. Only armament masters who specialized on control spaces could forge the interspatial ring, therefore the pricing had always been extremely high. People who came from smaller countries such as Southern would never be able to afford this at all. However, this little fox was an exceptional talented armament master, so to be able to afford these things was nothing out of the blue. Li Moying didn't bother to interrogate. He nodded his head and said, "Then let us go. Is there anywhere else you want to have a look?" "Nope." Li Moying gave her a gentle smile and touched her cheek, tucked her hair behind her ears and naturally held her hand, walking out. Huang Yueli attempted to draw her hand back but was stopped by Li Moying. "The roads along here are too dangerous. I'll hold on to you so that you won't accidentally fall off any cliff again. After all, you have a previous conviction. How dare you look down on me?" Li Moying smirked and held her hand tightly. Huang Yueli helplessly followed along with him. As she was walking, she seemed to recall something. Oh yes. I am not fond of the armament spirit in the amethyst light sword. She behaves like a little brat. Don't let her out so casually. Li Moying's lips curled upwards. This little fox, was she jealous? He didn't dare to voice out his thinking, so he solemnly nodded his head. That's my intention too. The amethyst light sword is after all, a half-divine relic. If other people were to see though it will probably cause unnecessary problems for us. Even if I have to use it in future, I'll also try not to lift the seal. That makes it much safer. Usually the armament spirits of profound armaments were sealed within the engraved patterns of the sword veins. They would only be activated if their masters used their profound strength to lift the seal, then will the armament spirit appear. Profound weapons with armament spirits were able to release its full potential. Otherwise it was no different from an 8th grade armament. As long as Li Moying do not lift the seal on the amethyst light sword, it would at most look like an ordinary 8th grade profound armament. The difference between an 8th and 9th grade was comparable to heaven and earth. Due to the fact that there were few 9th grade profound armaments, there were plentiful of 8th grade weapons around. In this way, the prowess of the amethyst light sword would naturally be weaker, but it was more than enough. Huang Yueli nodded delightfully, pleased with Li Moying's answer. This chaperone was worth the price. As they chatted nonchalantly, Huang Yueli suddenly felt a chill back her spine, and this raised her alarms. Her instincts told her danger was approaching. Huang Yueli had yet to react, and the man beside her had already pulled her into his arms. She heard a sound of sneering, and right before her eyes, fresh blood was spilled. You can also listen on. What's happening? Huang Yueli's eyes were popping out in surprise. A bloodshed flowing cloud fire leopard leapt upwards from behind. Its sharp claws were deeply etched into Li Moying's back. Fresh blood soaked through the back of Li Moying's clothes. Huang Yueli, on the other hand, was embraced tightly in Li Moying's arms, protected from any source of harm. Li Moying and the flowing cloud fire leopard were engaged into a fierce battle. Finally, Li Moying pierced through its heart and it fell dead instantly. At that moment, all of Li Moying's thoughts were on Huang Yueli. He thought she had gotten into an accident and was worried throughout the entire night. He wanted to confirm her safety and at the same time, educate this lass about his love. Hence he didn't double-check if the flowing cloud fire leopard was really dead. His swordplay had always been precise, without making any mistakes. However, this flowing cloud fire leopard's heart was positioned differently from others. Its heart was inclined to the right side, therefore although Li Moying had pierced through its body, it missed the vital spot. It was unconscious but had not died. After that, when Li Moying and Huang Yueli entered the armament refining hall and spent a substantial amount of time opening the furnace, the bickering over the amethyst light sword caused a commotion. At this point of time, the flowing cloud fire leopard which was left outside in the front hall was slowly awakening. It hid behind the door, waiting for them to reappear. When they were caught unaware, it snuck an attack from behind. This was a smart leopard. It knew that Huang Yueli was the weaker one and attempted to attack her first, followed by the other. It had been proven that its choice is the correct one. Huang Yueli indeed didn't notice the fluctuations of the 7th-tier magical beast's profound energy. Li Moying's first instinct was to use his body to shield her from its attack. The flowing cloud fire leopard let out a howl when it struck its target. Its hatred towards Li Moying was immensely high. Now that it has inflicted injury on him, it felt exceptional, as though it could now take its revenge. The flowing cloud fire leopard wanted to use this opportunity to strike Li Moying down once and for all. At this point, it saw Li Moying turned around and a flash of lightning came charging towards it. It was struck by the electric current and was roasted to a crisp. Immediately, it fell heavily on the ground. This round, it was finally dead. The biggest problem was Li Moying was seriously injured too. After his finishing move, as if he had used up all his energy, he fell towards the direction of Huang Yueli. She hurriedly ran forward to catch him and her hands were immediately stained with his blood. This made her panic. Li Moying, you. She didn't know what to say at all. She tried to talk but tears kept rolling down her face. She really didn't expect that when she ran into danger, this man's first reaction was to use his life to protect her. Without any further consideration. Why on earth did he do this? Both of them were unrelated, and at most, they had only known each other for about a month. He kept wooing her but she rejected him time after time. To be honest, she wasn't anyone to him at all. If Li Moying had not thrown himself at her, she might have been the one who was seriously injured, or maybe even dead. But he definitely wouldn't be injured to this extent. Why on earth did he do this? Are you injured? Li Moying's deadly white lips barely mouthed these words. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli's eyes turned red again. Li Moying had suffered a serious injury, and the first thing on his mind was to ask if she was injured. This man. Really? She covered Li Moying's mouth and told him, You better stop talking. Let's go outside, I'll support you. Due to the unforeseen circumstances earlier, Li Moying used his formidable lighting profound skill. Lighting skills attack skills are ranked number 1 in terms of power ranking. Because such a formidable skill was used in a small area, it caused a deep crack on the apex of the cave dwelling. Signs were hinting the cave might collapse any time. Small rocks were falling on their heads and tiny, long cracks started forming on the walls of the caves. Huang Yueli knew that this cave would not be able to last beyond the time needed to brew a cup of tea, and since it was obvious that Li Moying was unable to make any major movements by himself, she offered her support to bring him out of this cave dwelling. Otherwise both of them would be buried alive. She held on tightly to support his waist and back, and allowed him to lean his entire weight against her small frame. In a split second, his masculine body frame almost crushed her. She hurriedly initiated her profound energy and propped him up. Let's go quickly. Huang Yueli clinched him and trudged out. But no matter how much energy she used, his feet seemed to be nailed to the ground, unable to move him at all. Li Moying, are you awake? He answered feebly, with his head resting on Huang Yueli's shoulder. Persevere on and coordinate with me to bring you out of this cave. It's going to collapse any time. I really have no strength to drag you out. Li Moying answered her. But even though she has exerted her energy, she was still unable to move him. What's wrong with you? Don't you want to continue living anymore? An annoyed Huang Yueli could feel that Li Moying didn't want to move at all. Even if it was an unconscious person, the total weight shouldn't be more than 100 kilograms. After all, she was a martial practitioner. There's no reason that she was unable to move him at all. What's more, this was not time for him to be willful. Li Moying gasped and whispered in her ear, Magical Beast Core. Huang Yueli couldn't hear clearly. What did you say? 7th Tier Fire Attribute, Demonic Beasts, Magical Beast Core. Huang Yueli couldn't believe her ears. 7th Tier Fire Attribute Magical Beast Core. Li Moying still remembered. That item was in her list that she gave Li Moying before they entered the Dark Moon Forest. At this time, you're still thinking about the Magical Beast Core. The room is going to collapse any time now, and your injuries, we cannot wait any longer. Let's go now. Li Moying was insistent. Go, retrieve the magical Beast core. I'm not going. Go retrieve. He sounded like he was on his last breath, and yet he was so obstinate. Huang Yueli was at her wit's end. Gritting her teeth, she could only oblige to his wishes. Luckily the corpse of the flowing cloud fire leopard was just by her feet, and it was already burnt to a crisp. The charred skin had curled upwards. Huang Yueli knelt down beside it, took out her dagger, cut a small incision and easily obtained the magical beast core. Li Moying's face flashed a weak, pale smile. I have done all the things that I promised. You must also do what you have promised me, okay? Okay, your head. Li Moying, you big idiot. Huang Yueli choked with emotions. You can also listen on. She wanted to use all her might and wake him up, asking him what he has on his mind. At this crucial moment of life and death, he wasn't concerned about his injuries, nor was he worried about the consequences of excessively bleeding. He was actually worried about the magical beast core. It was indeed difficult to obtain a 7th grade fire attribute magical beast core. But what about it? If they missed this chance, they could always hunt for another. It would just take a bit more time. Was he so persistent because she said she had urgent need for it? Even if Huang Yueli had thousands of words now, she was unable to convey it to Li Moying. After she collected the magical beast core, he lost consciousness and helplessly fell into her embrace. At this moment, half of Master Yuntian's cave dwelling had already collapsed. There was no time to waste. Huang Yueli hastily dragged Li Moying, not sparing any effort, trudged towards the outside of the cave. Finally, she succeeded in bringing Li Moying out of the debacle before it collapsed fully. Outside the cave where she had spent the night before, there were no signs of human habitation. Huang Yueli carefully supported Li Moying to lie down on a piece of considerably smooth ground and lay him with his back facing upwards. Using a dagger, she carefully separated the clothes on his back, exhibiting his wounds. Just one look and it made Huang Yueli's heart wince. The scar started from his left shoulder and lasting all the way to his left waist. It was deep and malevolent. Due to the fact that the flowing cloud fire leopard had the fire attribute, this wound seemed like a burn wound. The side of the skin looked like it was burnt, with an unnatural hinge of purplish-black color. Li Moying was in a state of comatose, which allowed Huang Yueli to do as she wished. Huang Yueli frowned and using her mental concentration, she entered the Sky Phoenix ring. In the hall's cupboards, there were plenty of pills with different varieties. A pity the level was too low, it were all 2nd level upper grade pills. However, Li Moying's injury was caused by a 7th tier demonic beast. The medicinal effect of the pills would not be able to help him much. However, it was still better than nothing. Since there were so many pills, perhaps consuming in large volumes might have a superposition effect. Huang Yueli read the labels on the medicinal bottles, selected a few which were of use and stuffed it all in her sleeves. As if struck by a brainwave, she recalled the spirit Saint Spring in the courtyard. The Saint Spring water was not only effective in nourishing the soul, it was extremely effective in healing wounds. Huang Yueli searched for an extra large pail and scooped up an entire pail full of Saint Spring water, bringing it to the world outside. The wound on Li Moying's back was fairly easy to treat. Although the wound looked sinister, he was lucky it didn't hurt his internal organs. The serious part was that he lost a huge amount of blood. Huang Yueli was not the type of girl who would tremble at the sight of blood. In this sort of circumstances, she was unusually tranquil and unflustered. She kept to the working order of using the Saint Spring water to wash his wound, followed by applying crushed medical pills on the wound. Lastly, she used a clean white cloth to bandage the wounded area. In between the process, Li Moying had moved once or twice, but it was a type of reflex and not because he awoke. After completing the treatment of his wound, she proceeded to change the posture of the unconscious Li Moying, allowing his head to lay on her lap. Supporting the back of his head, she tried to feed him the medicinal pills. Li Moying's pale lips opened slightly as she pushed a pill into his mouth. Using a cup of Saint Spring water, she tried to make him swallow the pill. You can also listen on. Li Moying had lost all consciousness, hence there was no way that he could swallow the pills at all. The Saint Spring water brimmed out from the corners of his mouth while the pills remained inside his mouth. An anxious Huang Yueli furiously retorted, "Can't you just take your medication?" Annoying. You were conscious earlier. Why didn't you come out with me to treat your injury while you were conscious? Why must you insist on obtaining the magical beast core? See, now you can't even take your medication. Do you wish to die? No matter how madly she retaliated, it was as though she was talking to a wall, casting pearls before a swine. Li Moying couldn't hear anything, hence he would not have any response towards her threats. As his face turned paler and paler, Huang Yueli became more distressed. She bowed her head down and took a mouthful of Saint Spring water, then pressed her lips against Li Moying's lips. His usually fervent thin lips had turned icy cold and was trembling slightly. Huang Yueli carefully ferried the spring water into his mouth, but he was not swallowing the water, merely holding it within. She was at her wit's end, so she stuck out her delicate tongue and pushed the pill deeper. Once it has slid into his throat, it choked him slightly, and in response, he swallowed the pill. Huang Yueli heaved a sigh of relief and hurriedly took another mouthful of Saint Spring water. Changing to another pill, she continued to feed Li Moying the medication. Although simple, this method proved to be effective as Li Moying had already taken various types of medicinal pills. After she had finished feeding him all the medications, Huang Yueli entered the Sky Phoenix ring and took with her the tent which they had used several days ago and the blanket which Little Phoenix carefully kept away, laid it on the ground in a bid to allow Li Moying to feel more comfortable. It was just too bad that the bedding Little Phoenix used was too small. It could only cover part of his torso, exposing his hands and feet. Still, it was better than nothing. Since he was already seriously injured, it wasn't advisable for Li Moying to catch a cold. Following that, Huang Yueli set up a beast diversion array before squeezing back into the tent. The night went by peacefully. There were no incidents nor signs of any powerful magical beasts prowling around. However, Li Moying did not awake the next morning. Huang Yueli was extremely worried. Although she wasn't a professional physician or alchemy master, she was still a ninth realm expert in her past life. There went plenty of scenarios where she had to go through fire and water, so injuries were part and parcel of life. Injuries such as being clawed by magical beasts were commonly seen, so naturally she had some understanding of this. Li Moying's injury was more of a superficial one as it had not affected his internal organs. The main reason for loss of consciousness was largely due to the huge amount of blood lost. Even though the pills were of lower grade quality, since he had swallowed that much of a quantity, it should more or less have an effect. Not to mention there was the Saint Spring water which had the magical effect of neutralizing decays and contusions. By right, he should have awakened by now. Huang Yueli took his pulse and suddenly realized that his condition was more serious than she had expected. Li Moying's internal breath had become very messy, he had severely lost a large amount of profound energy. It was obvious that his internal injury was extremely serious. Thinking back to the moment he rushed into the cave dwelling to look for her, that travel-worn look, Huang Yueli guessed that he might have obtained an internal injury elsewhere. Because of her, he did not have enough time to recuperate, only relying on medicinal pills and his internal breath to reduce the impact of his internal injury. Thereafter, due to the surprise attack from the flowing cloud fire leopard, it caused a deep wound from its vicious clawing. His internal injury probably was triggered because his bodily functions were weakened. You can also listen on. If an internal injury was not treated fully, the next time it relapsed, the aftermath would be multiplied several folds. This was the real reason why Li Moying did not wake up. However, even though Huang Yueli knew the reason, there was nothing she could do. She had no idea where they were now, nor which way should they head towards. Neither did she knew how much time it would take to leave the Dark Moon Forest. What's more, both of them were in the restricted zone of the Dark Moon Forest. If they did not have a clear direction to follow, they may meet with some high-level demonic beasts. With Li Moying heavily wounded, in this type of situation, there was only one death route for this pair of mandarin ducks. With Li Moying's current condition, it would be better for him to not move around. There was one thing worth rejoicing: there were varieties of pills in the Huang Yueli Sky Phoenix ring. That included plentiful of abstinence pills and Saint Spring water. With just these two items, it would sustain them for an entire year in the deep hills. Huang Yueli decided to stay put. After she had carefully observed the surroundings and set up the necessary concealment arrays, she focused all her attention on taking care of Li Moying. 3 days had passed. The wound on Li Moying's back started to show signs of healing under the daily cleansing of the Saint Spring water. However, he had not awakened. The most important task that Huang Yueli needed to do daily is to feed him medication. As Li Moying did not show any signs of consciousness, for the past 3 days, she fed him via mouth continuously for 3 meals per day. Initially she felt embarrassed. Luckily Li Moying was in an unconscious state and was not able to see the entire scene. After that, she started to get used to it. A handsome man who was unable to move, she could treat him like a rag doll. On the morning of the 4th day, Huang Yueli proceeded to feed him his medication. Li Moying's good-looking face still showed a pale, grayish complexion. That pair of deep, serene eyes were closed tightly. There were even dark eye circles. His long lashes were thick and black yet not overbearing, giving him a delicate temperament. Huang Yueli's fingers involuntarily brushed across the bridge of his nose. The Li Moying now looked even more outstanding than usual. Normally his overbearing and imposing figure gave out an extremely oppressing feeling. Because of this, it made others neglect the fact that his looks were too bewitching. She picked the little white porcelain bottle and poured out a pill. Holding the pill in her mouth, she took a mouthful of Saint Spring water. Exactly as what she did for the past 3 days, she placed her lips on Li Moying's lips. She was already experienced in feeding medication, so this round was very smoothly executed. As she was preparing to withdraw her tongue, a soft thing suddenly approached her and twirled around her tongue, playfully frolicking. Huang Yueli's mind turned blank. After a couple of breaths, she suddenly reacted. This was Li Moying's tongue. This man had awoken. Huang Yueli was startled and opened her eyes wide. She saw Li Moying's eyes stirring but had not opened. Only his tongue was sliding around in her mouth. For convenience's sake to feed medication, she had allowed Li Moying's head to rest on her thigh. This position was just too ambiguous. Huang Yueli's face instantly turned beet red and her heart tangled together. When did this man awaken? Why was there no warning signs at all? And the minute he awoke was to do something so amorous. And he, in spite of everything, if it wasn't for the fact that while he was saving her, he incurred such a serious injury, she would have definitely taught him a lesson. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli hurriedly stepped backwards. This was executed successfully because Li Moying had no strength at all to stop her from departing. As if a cat's tail which was trodden, Huang Yueli nudged sideways and asked, Li Moying, have you awoken? Do you feel better? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Li Moying slowly opened his eyes, but that pair of black and white eyeballs were now surrounded by bloody red veins. He looked terrifying. Lear. He opened his mouth to speak, but his voice sounded weak and hoarse, making it difficult to hear what he was saying. Huang Yueli knew his injuries were serious, but she had not expected his condition to be that awful after he gained back his consciousness. Looked like the internal injury Li Moying suffered was much more serious than what she had expected initially. She couldn't afford to care about awkwardness and moved next to Li Moying. She placed her palm on his forehead and realized that his fever had not subsided. Frowning and with a troubled expression, she asked, "Li Moying, how exactly are you feeling now? Your condition is very bad. Although your external wound have recovered mostly, but your internal injury." I know," he replied softly. Huang Yueli urged, "Then what should we do? Do you have any way to contact your sect? I had thought of waiting for MOE and the rest to come and rescue you since you were unable to move, but it looks like your injuries, we cannot wait any further." Li Moying closed his eyes, as if he was tired out from just speaking. He didn't reply Huang Yueli's question, instead he asked, "What day is it today?" Huang Yueli told him, "Today is the 4th day since you were injured, so today is the 15th day of March." "What? Already the 15th? Li Moying suddenly cried out in surprise. His forehead started to spring out beads of cold sweat, he was appalled. Luckily he managed to wake up today, otherwise. However, there wasn't enough time now. His injuries were too serious that he was unable to move. How could he rush back in time? Huang Yueli misunderstood his meaning and anxiously said, "Yeah, you were unconscious for so many days. Do you know how worried I was? We have to quickly contact MOE." Li Moying said in a low voice, "My interspatial ring should have emergency medication." His deadly pale lips were moving, but Huang Yueli had to plaster herself on him in order to be able to hear what he was saying. This lovable little fox was worried sick, her eyes were red and her hair was messy, and she was sticking close to him. This scenario made Li Moying weakly curled the side of his lips, giving a faint smile. What a waste, this little thing practically threw herself at him. But there wasn't anything he can do now. However, looking at how worried she was for him, Li Moying felt heartened. For this expression that she showed, it was worth getting another serious injury as such. Huang Yueli looked at him intensely, "You have medication. Quickly, bring it out." Li Moying lightly took a breath, bearing with the sharp pain. He forced himself to concentrate and opened his interspatial ring. The next moment, he held a porcelain bottle in his hand. Huang Yueli swiftly received the bottle. "Are you sure this is effective? Then again, the medication you brought along are definitely high-quality, grade products. Wait, what is this? You can also listen on." Initially, Huang Yueli heaved a sigh of relief. But after she opened the bottle cap and took out the pill, her face changed upon one glance at the pill. Li Moying was actually preparing to eat this type of medication. She was still in disbelief, so she took up the pill and sniffed a whiff of it. In her previous life, when she met with danger, she had no choice but to take a pill to save her life. Her memory had always been excellent, so if she had taken a certain pill, she would definitely be able to recognize it. "Li Moying, do you know what medication is this? Did you take the wrong medication? At this critical moment, can you please be more reliable? You can eat indiscriminately, but you cannot anyhow swallow pills." An astonished hue flashed across Li Moying's eyes. You know, what medication is this?" The medicinal pill that he had taken out was extremely rare. It could not be purchased in the market, and if you were not an experienced and knowledgeable expert, most people would not be able to recognize it. An exasperated Huang Yueli retorted, "Why can't I recognize it? On the contrary, do you know what pill is this? The red scorpion blood transfusion pill. Do you know what it is used for? Oh, of course you know, the pill belongs to you. Can you just bring out any dangerous medication like this? Quickly keep it. Bring me the actual medicinal pill. Li Moying coughed and in a low voice, No, this is the pill I want to take. What nonsense are you talking about? Don't you cherish your life anymore? Taking this type of pill will only give a temporary effect. The damage it causes to your body is way more serious than you can expect. You're already seriously wounded, please don't take your own body as a joke. He had yet to complete his sentence when Huang Yueli started to scream at him. The red scorpion blood transfusion pill was a 6th grade upper grade pill. The main ingredient used to refine the pill was the phoenix tail red scorpion, a 6th tier magical beast's poisonous sac found on the tip of the tail. The poisonous sac was then refined into an extraordinary type of pill. Its effect was to use the poisonous nature of the phoenix tail red scorpion to stimulate the practitioner's hidden capability. Once the pill was taken, the entire body would feel numbed. Even if the profound energy was all used up, with the effect of the red scorpion blood transfusion pill, it could pull out at least 80% of fighting strength. Unfortunately, the effect could not last long, at most for 2 hours before it loses its magic. What's worse, the side effects were very obvious. Just taking one pill alone, the poisonous nature of the phoenix tail red scorpion would infuse into the meridians, which might also affect the cultivation. The entire body would be in a state of poor health in the first month, and even after 3 months, the health status would not recover to its original state. Generally speaking, unless the practitioner fell into impasse where the situation was either to kill or to be killed, under such circumstances would they take the risk to take a pill. Even if 2 hours had passed and the effect had faded, at least there was a chance of survival. However, Li Moying's situation was totally different. At the present moment, he had managed to pull through from the critical condition. Although his internal injury was still severe, he would still be able to hang on for some time until MOE and the rest found them. Taking the risk to take this medication was simply looking for death. Li Moying looked at the little fox's furious expression and quietly sighed. He hadn't expected that this little thing to be so knowledgeable, that she could recognize this type of upper-grade pill. He was still thinking, since Huang Yueli didn't know what this pill was, after he had taken the pill and led them out of this place, even after she understood what had happened, it would not matter anymore. But now, Li Moying was insistent, give me. No way. I'm confiscating this bottle of medication. Huang Yueli's fingers grasped tightly on the bottle, holding the pill in her palm. She put her hand behind her back, determined not to let him snatch it from her. You can also listen on. Lear. This is my medication, even if I'm not taking it. You still have to return it back. Huang Yueli stood stagnant. That's right. The pill belonged to him, and it was a 6th level upper grade pill which was worth loads of silver. It didn't make any sense for her to snatch away. But this man was obviously not going to listen to her. Should the pill fall into his hands, she guaranteed that he would immediately swallow it. Her eyebrows creased, but in an instant, she found the perfect reasonable excuse. Weren't you saying that you have sold yourself to me? Then I'm your mistress. All your fortune should rightfully belong to me, and needless to say, that includes this bottle of red scorpion blood transfusion pill. Li Moying had never expected her to say such a thing, and he was completely stupefied. Huang Yueli gleefully shot a glance at him and righteously kept the bottle. Li Moying didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Did this little thing knew what she was saying? Earlier she was determined not to accept him and rather gave the amethyst light sword as a gift. Now, contrary to what one might expect, she dared to say anything. If it was in normal times, Li Moying would not hesitate to take liberties with her, but now that he didn't have any strength at all, He sighed inwardly, loathing his current condition, weak. Heavens knows, he had not incurred such a serious injury for many years, and it had to happen at this kind of timing. Li Moying's majestic eyebrows knot into a line and his facial expression looked slightly paler than before. Lear. Stop fooling around, give me the medication, I must eat it. No way. I will never let you take this type of medication. Listen to me and lie down quietly. Calmly internalize your breathing and convalescent. Although this method is slow, it can help to improve the condition of your internal injury. This is much better than you taking medicine indiscriminately. Lear. Huang Yueli turned herself around, pretending not to hear anything. Please listen to me. She continued to ignore him. Li Moying had no choice but to continue uttering. Please stop fooling around. I really need to rush back, by the 15th day of March. Rush back. Back to where? Huang Yueli couldn't help herself from questioning him. My sect. Your sect, Huang Yueli retorted, no. Impossible. With your current condition, you're intending to rush back all the way to your sect. And within one day, it's just not possible, okay? At least, can't stay here, must find MOE. Then we'll wait for him here. There must be some way that you can contact him, right? By the time he rushes here, there will not be enough time. My speed is much faster. I have to find him. That is not funny at all. No means no. Give up that idea. Huang Yueli was almost driven mad. She had never encountered such a stubborn mule of a man. Did he even bother about his own body condition? He was already seriously injured to this extent. What matter was so important that he needed to rush back within the same day? Even if it was something major, could it be more important than his own condition? Huang Yueli steeled her heart, determined not to give him the medication bottle. All right then, Li Moying finally gave in. That's more like it. Lear. Hearing Li Moying calling for her, she turned around. Now that he's the injured party, as long as he's not insistent on taking medicine indiscriminately, she would still be able to satisfy his needs. However, when she turned around, a large force was emitted, causing her to lose her balance. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli had not expected to be ambushed, and Li Moying's strength overwhelmed hers by quite an amount. When she was pulled over, she fell towards the ground. Hey! What are you intending to do? When she was almost reaching the ground, the pulling force disappeared. Huang Yueli quickly steadied herself and turned her head around fiercely. Taking a stare, she broke out in cold sweat. Li Moying took the chance while she was repositioning herself, swiftly took away the bottle in her hand, opened the bottle cap and in an instant, took out 3 pills and delivered it straight to his mouth. Huang Yueli couldn't believe her eyes. She rushed over in bid to stop Li Moying. However, it was too late. He leaned slightly against the mountain wall and stuffed 3 red scorpion blood transfusion pills into his mouth and swallowed it. After taking the pills, his grip loosened and the pill bottle tumbled onto the ground. His face turned pale white as his entire body started to slide down against the mountain wall. It seemed that the 2 simple actions of snatching and swallowing the pills had sapped all the remaining energy in his body. Li Moying, are you crazy? I've already told you that you're not allowed to eat the pill. Why did you still do that? And you actually snatched it from my hands. Do you still desire to continue living on? Who was the one who said he will sell himself to me? How dare you sneak an attack on your mistress? Li Moying's eyelids were half closed and he didn't make a single sound. Perhaps it was more appropriate to say that he had no energy to talk at all. Huang Yueli pounced towards him and inserted her long, slender fingers into his mouth in an attempt to dig out the pills. However, the medication had already been ingested. No matter how indignant she felt, there was nothing she could do. Just as her face was filled with despair and prepared to give up, her fingers suddenly felt a surge of warmth. She stared blankly and suddenly raised her chin. It was unclear when Li Moying became clear-headed. His eyes were wide open and crystal clear, with some hints of seductiveness and evilness. It was as if he was the same as per normal. Unexpectedly, the red scorpion blood transfusion pill took effect so quickly. You lunatic. As Huang Yueli was about to fly into a rage, her fingers felt a ticklish sensation. That weird feeling was as if this man was licking her. She blushed immediately, with embarrassed and annoyed emotions overflowing. She attempted to draw back her fingers. Drawing back the corners of his mouth, Li Moying released her fingers. But following that, he stretched out his arm and hooked her waist towards him. Huang Yueli fell totally into his embrace. Li Moying lowered his head and said in an amorous tone, breathing into her ears, "Lear, when I was unconscious, you voluntarily offered your kisses to me daily. Although I could not move, my entire body could feel it. You don't know what type of fire did you light up in me." What? What do you mean by voluntarily kissing you? That's called feeding you medication. Huang Yueli's face turned redder and redder, as if blood was going to pour out. Oh, my God, had he been able to feel the entire process? Then. Li Moying looked at her sheepish look and a sense of tenderness filled his heart. The usual perceptive look in his eyes started to add a hinge of gentleness. He lowered his head and gave a kiss on the corner of Huang Yueli's mouth. "You are so cute, I wish I can properly kiss you, but now we do not have any time to lose. We only have 2 hours, so let's use the time wisely." "What? Kiss me? You're not allowed to get fresh with me." Huang Yueli flew into a rage out of humiliation, with the intention to push him aside. Li Moying's expression suddenly turned solemn. "You can also listen on. Hug me around my waist, tighter, quickly. We have to move out now." Hearing this, Huang Yueli couldn't be bothered to continue arguing with him. His current tip-top condition was exchanged by taking the pills, so there was no time to waste. She hurriedly adjusted her posture. Shortly afterwards, Li Moying took a huge leap and started to fly upwards. Just one leap and they have already passed several meters high. With the help of the rocks which grew on the sides of the mountain, they were practically flying and ascending along the cliff. Huang Yueli hugged on tightly, her face leaning against his sturdy chest. Although the ascending speed was fast, it was very stable. Li Moying intentionally protected her, bringing her into his embrace, sheltering her against the howling wind and any small rocks which could hurt her. Huang Yueli stayed within his embrace and felt exceptional safe. It was as though if they met with any kinds of danger, this man had enough strength and determination to protect her. Only, she felt restless and slightly afraid. Because this was not his actual peak performance, rather he was still suffering from heavy internal injury and took the red scorpion blood transfusion pills, which was why he had the ability to leap onto roofs and vault over walls. Earlier, he was weakened to that state. Could he really handle everything now? Once the effect of the pill is lost, what would happen to him then? His internal injury was already very serious, now that he had taken this type of medication. Huang Yueli simply could not imagine, what price would Li Moying need to pay in future. Very soon, both of them descended on the top of the cliff. Li Moying surveyed the surroundings and said, "Between Moe and me, there is a spiritual footprint. Unfortunately, it has been several days, so the effect of the footprint has greatly weakened. My spiritual recognition is weaker, perception has also decreased, so I can only roughly tell where is he located now." Huang Yueli anxiously asked, "Where is he now?" Li Moying replied, "He should already have descended the mountain and planning to enter the restricted zone to look for us. The distance is very far away. But since I have already left that area, he should be able to sense it. He will then rush over to meet us halfway. We must quickly be on our way, grab hold of me tightly." Huang Yueli complied and grabbed his clothes, but she could not stop wondering. After contemplating for a while, she decided to ask. What urgent matter do you have, that you need to hurry so much? For the sake of hurrying, you're even willing to take the red scorpion blood transfusion pill? I really don't understand. Li Moying lowered his head and looked at her, heaving a sigh but stopped at that. I didn't want to hide this from you. But it's a long story, even if I explained now, it will be unclear. Anyway, this matter has something to do with the reason why I need your help to refine the profound lunar spirit mirror. After we have found MOE, I'll slowly explain the details. Hearing the 4 words, profound lunar spirit mirror, Huang Yueli bit her lips and stopped asking. She had long suspected that Li Moying wanted to refine the profound lunar spirit mirror to cure some illness for a lady. And now that he said he had to rush back urgently, surely it should be related to this matter. Didn't that mean he had some relationship with that lady? Who on earth was she? The more Huang Yueli was curious, the more she couldn't open her mouth. She was also afraid of finding out the answer. Li Moying didn't manage to guess what she had on her mind. Seeing her obediently bowing her head, he immediately surrounded her and prepared to leave. At this moment, Huang Yueli suddenly rose her head and shouted out in shock. Li Moying, be careful. You can also listen on. At the same moment, Li Moying had sensed a foreboding and turned his head around. In the middle of the sky were 2 humongous white-winged golden-crested vultures, flapping its huge wings and speedily flying towards them. Those white tail feathers and golden wings were radiating under the sunlight. When their wings flapped, several branches on the trees snapped as though a typhoon had swept across the forest. The 2 vultures whined as they flew nearer, and without any hesitation, they charged towards the direction where Huang Yueli was. Li Moying dodged and immediately stood in front to shield her. Huang Yueli frowned, silently feeling remorseful. As expected, these 2 white-winged golden-crested vultures were here because of the disappearance of their little one. She was licked by them before, so it was the unique smell that emitted from her body which lured them here. At that time when she left, she had planned in advance that once she got out of the danger zone, she would change and bath in the Saint Water Spring to eliminate the smells. Thereafter, she had entered Master Yuntian's cave dwelling, and with Li Moying being seriously injured, hence she had almost forgotten about this matter. When they were in the mountains, because Huang Yueli set up the beast diversion array so it did not capture the attention of the white-winged golden-crested vultures. Now that they had left the safety zone of the beast diversion array, they had stopped by the vulture's nest on their ascent up the cliff. In this way, it was equivalent to Huang Yueli walking straight into the trap, exposing herself to Vulture Daddy and Vulture Mummy. While Huang Yueli was still pondering, one of the vultures aggressively pounced over in an attempt to capture her. Li Moying turned his fingers and drew out the amethyst light sword from his realm ring. A flash of lightning struck and a stream of sword aura shot out towards the eye of the white-winged golden-crested vulture. Chirp! The vulture gave a loud cry and blood streamed out, causing it to step backwards by several meters. Upon seeing its partner injured, the other vulture was both filled with rage and anxiety and unusually pounced over aggressively. These 2 white-winged golden-crested vultures were 7th-tier magical beasts. When they attacked together, it would be equivalent to a 8th-degree realm expert attacking at the same time. What's more, these 2 vultures were a couple, so they were well coordinated, helping each other to take cover and action at the right moment. The intensity of their power was extremely high. Despite the fact that she had confidence in Li Moying's capability, her heart was still pounding madly as if it was about to jump straight out of her mouth any time. They were two 7th-tier magical beasts. Handling one vulture, of course it wouldn't pose any problem. But how about two? His cultivation was only at 9th level of the 6th degree realm. Even if his fighting strength was exceptional, could he handle two 7th-tier magical beasts? Moreover, he still had a serious internal injury. Under these circumstances, although he had took the red scorpion blood transfusion pills to control his injury, he was only able to release 80% of his actual strength. Even at his peak, he might not be able to handle two of these 7th-tier magical beasts. What more about now? It is what it is. Li Moying was as fast as lightning, continued unleashing his profound energy with various types of thunder attribute profound skills which almost turned the forest into ruins. Despite all these, none of the two vultures were defeated nor did they leave. Li Moying's movements slowly turned sluggish. Although he had the upper hand now, if it was in normal times, he could have won easily if he persevered. Huang Yueli knew clearly that he was not able to last for long as he only had 2 hours of battle strength. You can also listen on. They must settle this duel in the shortest time possible. Huang Yueli gritted her teeth and took out the remaining 2 pieces of thunder flame balls from her sky phoenix ring. While the 2 white-winged golden-crested vultures were distracted by Li Moying's attacks, she quietly crept behind them. Following that, she used her special technique and threw out the 2 balls of thunder flame. Her aim was extremely accurate. The 2 balls of thunder flame landed directly on the vultures' backs. As compared to the size of the white-winged golden-crested vultures, the effect was simply unnotable, hence they didn't even notice the egg-like size of an injury. However, at this moment, Huang Yueli softly shouted, "Ignite!" The thunder flame ball instantly exploded with true phoenix flames bursting out, burning a large portion of the vulture's feathers. After the 2 balls had exploded, the fire did not diminish. Instead, it turned into 8 hooked daggers, deeply embedding into the back of the vultures. Chew! 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 The 2 vultures were chirping in pain, turning their heads back to see what was hurting them. At this moment, Huang Yueli had snuck into the forest and hid behind a huge trunk of a 1,000-year-old tree. Hearing the vultures cry, she couldn't help but to snicker. These 2 thunder flame balls were her ingenious top-quality concealed weapons which were created at the peak quality of her current level. Even if it was a 7th-tier magical beast, it would definitely be injured by its tremendous power. Knowing that the little fox was up to something, Li Moying reacted quickly and grabbed the opportunity. He grabbed tightly onto the amethyst light sword with his hands and murmured in a low tone, "Unseal." Blinding purple rays emitted from the amethyst light sword and dyed its surroundings into a shade of purple. Following that, little Lilac's figure reflected on top of the sword blade. What's more, the size of her figure kept increasing till she matched the sizes of the white-winged golden-crested vultures. Little Lilac's huge wings fluttered and the entire atmosphere was filled with electrode currents, making it hard to breathe. Li Moying pointed the tip of the sword towards the vultures and little Lilac immediately charged ahead. Every single time her wings flapped, a bolt of electric current shot out. In an instant, the entire forest was covered with thunder and lightning, as if it had changed into a living hell. Coo! Coo! The 2 white-winged golden-crested vultures had yet to recover from the attack that Huang Yueli inflicted, therefore they were unable to resist against the violent force that little Lilac administered. Moments later, the 2 vultures were electrocuted beyond imagination, rolled their eyes and began to descend straight from the sky. Little Lilac's form gradually became smaller till she reached the size of a normal human being. She had a smiling expression and excitably threw herself into Li Moying's arms. "Master! Mr. Handsome! Ultra-handsome master! Was I strong, incisive and capable? All these were for you, master. As long as I get to see your handsome face, I will be filled with motivation every day. Little Lilac rubbed the back of her head against Li Moying's arms intimately. Li Moying hadn't had enough time to respond when he felt a penetrating line of sight staring straight at him. He hurriedly turned his ear and saw the expressionless Huang Yueli standing behind him, harboring evil intentions. Li Moying immediately felt something was not right and beads of cold sweat started to form on his forehead and were slowing dripping. He suddenly recalled that even though Little Lilac was a spirit artifact, her looks were exactly like a young lady. Could this little fox be jealous? You can also listen on. Li Moying immediately explained, Lear, it's not what you're thinking. After he said these words, Huang Yueli stared blankly. Not what I was thinking of. Li Moying doled and realized it was himself who was thinking askew. Just at this moment, Huang Yueli couldn't hold it any longer and started to decry, you're really too much. You could have beaten the 2 vultures earlier but you had to unseal the amethyst light sword. Do you know that unleashing the half-god relic wastes how much profound energy? Based on your current condition, why did you overdraft yourself? When the medicinal effect runs out, you'll just wait to suffer. Sure enough, he had thought too much. Li Moying wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and was glad that he did not tease the little fox. Heavens knows, he was actually imagining that his love was reciprocated. He urged on, I did not expect your Thunder Flame Ball's destructive force to be so big. What tier profound armament was that? I think it should be at least 6th tier. Your refinement level had gotten so high. Huang Yueli replied, this is only a 5th tier lower grade armament, with some adjustments made to the design when I was refining it. I see. Li Moying nodded, and took a look at Little Lilac who was still sticking to him. Using a pair of big eyes, she looked at him starry-eyed. Li Moying's expression remained indifferent and convenient made the hand sign. Little Lilac saw his actions and her expression changed immediately, shouting, Master. Handsome master. Please don't seal me away, I want to be with you. Seal. Too bad, her coquetry was callously interrupted. A purple light flashed by and Little Lilac was sealed once again into the amethyst light sword. Li Moying turned back and said, let's go, let's kill the 2 vultures and obtain their magical beast cores. Huang Yueli shook her head, there's no need. There was a reason for their attack, it was, ugh, just don't kill them. The 2 white-winged golden-crested vultures were already seriously injured and had fallen to the ground. Huang Yueli felt unbearable for them but since the little vulture had made a pact with her, there was no way she could return it to them. Li Moying curiously asked, there's a reason. What reason? Didn't they want to catch us to be their dinner? Huang Yueli made an sound and keep hemming and hawing, this, cough cough was actually my fault. When I fell down from the cliff, I happened to drop into their nest. At that time, there was a little vulture that had just hatched, so I made a pact with it. Li Moying stared at her. Wait, what did you say? Did I hear wrongly? You made a pact with a 7th tier magical beast's baby. That's right. It was because this entire story sounded ridiculous, which will cause most people to be skeptical, hence the reason for her not wanting to say it. However, since it was Li Moying questioning her, she didn't want to lie so she just told the entire truth. She carried the little vulture out from the Sky Phoenix ring and showed him a glance before carrying it back. Li Moying's expression towards her was as if he was looking at a freak. This is really the white-winged golden-crested vulture's baby, and it looked like it has just hatched less than a few days ago. But even though it's an infant, it already is a 4th tier potential. What's more, the vulture's nature is an arrogant creature. It would not easily bow down to a 1st-degree realm practitioner, how did you do it? You can also listen on. Huang Yueli gave a hollow laugh and said, Actually I have a special ability to tame beasts. This was not entirely a lie. Huang Yueli's coercion towards flying magical beasts was indeed a special ability, releasing the little phoenix, restraining spiritual pets. Looks like this routine could be used for quite some time. Li Moying didn't question further and said, Lear, it's time for us to continue with our journey. Okay, Huang Yueli nodded and allowed him to hold her waist without any resistance, so that she could keep up with his speed. Just as Li Moying turned his head, Huang Yueli's face revealed an embarrassed expression. When she called out to Li Moying earlier, she was indeed unhappy with little Lilac staying put in his arms. But when she saw the expression on his face, she suddenly realized that there was no reason for her to be unhappy. Little Lilac was just a unit of energy. Li Moying would probably not feel comfortable with a bunch of women, rather he must have felt very comfortable with an Thunder attribute energy unit approaching him since they were of the same attribute. That explained why he had delayed response. Furthermore, why should she feel uncomfortable for no reason? She was not Li Moying's real fiancé. That marriage arrangement should not be valid, right? Huang Yueli felt she was getting more abnormal. The degree of caring for Li Moying seemed to have gone beyond what an average friend should have. Naturally, she felt touched that Li Moying was willing to sacrifice his life for her, but wasn't Mu Qingying the same? The person she liked should be Mu Qingying, wasn't it? While Huang Yueli was in a trance, she suddenly realized that their speed was gradually declining. She abruptly called out in fright, Li Moying, what happened to you? Is the medicinal effect wearing off? Li Moying had wanted to force himself to continue, but the red scorpion blood transfusion pill's effect was overbearing. It wasn't something that he could go up against just based on his willpower. As though all his energy were drawn out of his body, he collapsed instantly. Li Moying! Huang Yueli screamed and rushed over to hold him up. Li Moying leaned against her, his whole body weight pressing against her shoulders. It was a good thing that Huang Yueli was a practitioner as well, so she was able to carry a grown man. But Li Moying's condition was really in bad shape, and that made her heart pound faster. Previously, his face was pale white, but now it had begun to turn yellowish. He looked like he was on his last breath, his eyes shut, leaning against Huang Yueli's shoulder. She almost could not feel his breathing. Huang Yueli continued to call his name and he silently gave a sigh and murmured a few words. Huang Yueli didn't hear clearly, so she pressed her ears nearer. What did you say? Li Moying sounded as though he was gasping for breath. Today, before sun sets, must find Moe. Otherwise. Before he could complete his sentence, he couldn't hang in any longer and fainted in Huang Yueli's embrace. Otherwise? Otherwise what? And how am I supposed to find Moe? Tell me clearly. Huang Yueli was frantic. Li Moying was already in this condition, there was no way she could make him wake up to answer her queries. Oh boy, she didn't know course of action to take. Not to mention that they were in the inner zone of the Dark Moon Forest, with a grown man who had lost consciousness. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli hesitated, not knowing what steps she should take next. Very quickly she calmed down, took out a map of the Dark Moon Forest from the Sky Phoenix Ring and started studying their whereabouts. The inner zone of the Dark Moon Forest was very wide. No one knows where the boundaries were, so as they kept walking, the magical beasts in the forest were more powerful than before. In the core of the restricted zone was where numerous 9th-tier magical beasts dwelled. Even if it were 9th-degree realm experts, not everyone had the ability to defeat these 9th-tier magical beasts. Therefore no one knew the situation of the core's inner zone. However, there had been armies who frequent the Dark Moon Forest and they drew out rough sketches of maps. These were often sold at the entrances. The maps were not comprehensive because each army could only draw out the area which they were familiar with. Only after you had collected and pieced all the different maps together, then would you be able to get more concise information. The hints were pretty simple to understand. A few safe zones were marked out on the maps. As Lady Luck smiled on them, they had both left the restricted zone and entered the inner zone. Furthermore, the route that Li Moying brought her to had always been along the safety zones. If they were to move off from here, there was a safest and fastest route which would directly allow them to reach the foot of the mountain. Based on what Li Moying conveyed, Moe and the rest should be at the foot of the mountain and would meet them at the top of the mountain. The chances of both groups meeting up should be very high. Huang Yueli chose the route and kept the map. Following that, she bent down and piggybacked Li Moying. Yeah. She had just piggybacked him when Huang Yueli couldn't help but cry out. It wasn't that she didn't have enough strength, but Li Moying was tall and big. With her current body size was considered petite in this age, so when she was pushed down by his weight, she almost lost her balance. However, she quickly adjusted her posture and without further ado, she used the fastest speed she had to fly down the mountain. 8 hours had passed. Huff. 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 Huang Yueli panted and came to a halt, took a look at her surroundings and knitted her brows. Today her luck wasn't too bad. She had only met with a few magical beasts, and with her previous life's experience, she easily avoided those magical beasts and could safely continue with half a day's journey. However, her position was already close to the foot of the mountain, but she didn't notice any trace of Moe at all. Could it be that they had missed one another? But there was only one safe route from the mountain top, and most people would have chosen this route. Could there have been an accident? Dark Moon Forest's nightfall came earlier than usual. The surroundings became darker and darker, with the sunset lighting up the ground. When the sun set entirely, this place would become darker than usual. Although Huang Yueli could use flames to light up, but it was extremely dangerous in the Dark Moon Forest. What's more, they were within the extremely dangerous inner zone. Just based on her current strength, carrying the seriously injured and unconscious Li Moying to rush through the night, it was simply too dangerous. It was equivalent to sending themselves to their deathbeds. However, Li Moying had made it clear that she must find Moe before the sun sets. Huang Yueli didn't know what she should do. She hesitated for a moment and gently let the man whom she was carrying on her back down. You can also listen on. Although she didn't know the reason why Li Moying urgently had to locate Moe, but during the entire journey, he didn't make a single move at all. If it wasn't for the fact that she could feel his weak breathing, Huang Yueli would have thought he had long died. In his critical condition, she couldn't bear to continue with the entire journey with him on her back. Early morning he had taken the red scorpion blood transfusion pill, then took part in a precarious battle, and following that was the medication's reversal effects. During this entire duration, Huang Yueli kept on carrying Li Moying for several miles on her back without any time to rest. Coming to this, Li Moying was indeed a high-level practitioner, strong and valiant. If it was any other individual, they should have already kicked the bucket. In between the journey, Huang Yueli had considered to stop and let him recuperate quietly and wait for Moe to find them instead. However, when she recalled how insistently Moying looked before he fell unconscious, she could only hang on and continue with the journey. But now, night had already fell and they were still unable to find the rest. She simply had no choice. At the very least, she could not allow Li Moying to simply die like that, right? When Huang Yueli thought of this, she decided to set up a tent nearby to spend the night. She took out a tent from the space within the Sky Phoenix ring and started setting it up. At this moment, she heard a ruckus and shuffling footsteps. Rays from fire torches were emitting in the forest and the party was traveling towards their direction, getting nearer and nearer. Huang Yuele frowned and held Li Moying closer to her, raising a trace of precautionary measures from the bottom of her heart. Very soon, the fire torches shone in front of them, and what had appeared were a group of 10 over men, all of them very well built. At one look, all of them had strong power and behind them were several corpses of 5th-tier magical beasts. Huang Yueli squinted her eyes to size up the men and quickly made a judge that this should be a mercenary group that accepted an hunting assignment in the Dark Moon Forest's inner zone. From the fact that they were able to hunt so many 5th-tier magical beasts, their strength was indeed pretty good. This mercenary group should be quite well known in the South Sky region. But to meet someone at this critical junction was a bad thing. In the Dark Moon Forest, if you didn't have enough powerful might, then meeting humans is a more terrifying thing than meeting magical beasts. After all, magical beasts would not murder for money. Especially this group in front, they don't look like they were harvesting any benevolence. As for the both of them, one was seriously injured, the other's profound armaments were nearly used up, so their battle strength was equivalent to none. If they were to fall into the hands of these people, won't they be at others' beck and call? But since both parties have already met up, in this kind of dark night, this was the only safety zone which they could rest at, so there was no possibility to avoid them at all. Huang Yuele hung down her eyelids and furtively thought of different ideas. At the same time, the mercenary group were also observing the both of them. The leader of the mercenary group was a boar with a beard and a scar running across his face. He borrowed the fire torch's rays and stared at Huang Yueli and Li Moying for some time before he opened his mouth and queries. "Who are you guys? Why are you here?" Huang Yueli pretended to give a timid look, replying with fear and trepidation, We are students from Celestial Light Academy and we came here to train. Initially we had a large group, but in the middle of our journey, we were ambushed and lost our way with the main group. Can you tell us, what place is this? You can also listen on. Mercenaries which dared to risk entering the Dark Moon Forest's inner zone were basically not good-natured people. In such a place, no one would find out if they killed anyone, not to mention any form of punishment. It wasn't Huang Yueli's first day in society, so naturally she was very clear-headed that pretending to be some worthless character was safer for them. If her identity as an armament master and Li Moying was a disciple from a large sect was exposed, they would easily be threatened. There was no mental burden if other people found out that they had valuable items on them, and they would be attacked and possibly killed, with their possessions taken away from them as both of them were weak. So she immediately exhibited her acting skills and pretended to be a female student who was on her first training session. Luckily, the current situation they were in looked exactly like what she described. She was only at the Chi Profound Realm 9th level, and Li Moying was genuinely injured seriously and had lost a lot of profound energy. All year round, he carried along a profound artifact which could hide his cultivation level, so he looked as though he was in the defensive realm, 7th or 8th level at most. Some of South Sky region's famous school students were mostly around their age and cultivation levels. That was why the mercenaries did not suspect anything and believed her words. The bearded captain revealed a taunting smile and said, "Do you know what place is this? This is the inner zone of the Dark Moon Forest. Both of you are pretty daring and count your lucky stars that you have yet to be torn to pieces by the magical beasts." "Ah. This is the inner zone." Huang Yueli acted dumb, acting the role of an idiot marvelously. Bearded Captain and the surrounding members exchanged a deep and provoking glance, looking at Huang Yueli's exquisite features. Their eyes seemed to have some wretched meaning to it. Although they didn't say out loud, Huang Yueli knew, they were planning to make them too as baits. And they probably had evil intentions on her. A strand of coldness flashed across her eyes. These scums, they were actually having designs on a young girl who had yet to reach marriageable age. If they had met in her previous life, these scums would definitely become minced meat on the spot. But now, although a little troublesome, don't mention about her limited strength, the most important issue was Li Moying's safety. If they were to clash now, the person who would most probably lose his life is him. For this reason, she could only swallow her anger. Anyway, there would be plenty of opportunities to deal with this bunch of scum. The bearded captain spoke again. "Miss, what's your name? And that man beside you, what is your relationship with him? He seems to be in bad shape. Is he seriously injured?" She replied, "My name is Yuli and this is my senior." "Senior, he was injured because he was protecting me." There was no point in hiding Li Moying's injury as it was clear for all to see. It was most appropriate to tell the truth, so as to lower the captain's vigilance. Bearded captain laughed heartily. "Count your lucky stars, you've met us, the werewolf mercenaries. Otherwise, if it was just the both of you, one being seriously injured, I'm afraid that you won't have to wait till sunrise to become a meal for the magical beasts. What should we do?" Huang Yueli stared with her eyes wide open. "That's why I said to count your lucky stars." Bearded captain twirled his beard whiskers. "Since you've met us, the werewolf mercenaries, we won't leave you alone to die. So you can tag along with us and leave the Dark Moon Forest. You can also listen on. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.